Hey, welcome back to the channel, everybody. Well, today I'm going to be doing a little video on a little issue I'm having with the Mahindra 2638. Nothing major, more convenience type thing. If I didn't have a cab, I probably wouldn't be worrying about it, but this particular 2638, it's a 2020, came with a radio, AM, FM, your standard radio, automotive type style. And about a couple weeks ago, I was experiencing an issue where I reached up to turn the volume down and the radio just died, just stopped working. Now, when I say stopped working, I mean it stopped making noise, meaning there's nothing coming out of the speakers. The radio was still on, still playing. I could see the lights on the front of the radio were still on. I could change the stations. I could get into it with my Bluetooth phone and hook into it. So the radio itself, the stereo, seemed to be functioning. There's just no sound coming out of it. So that's the issue I was having with it. I initially checked, obviously, as best I could with the radio installed. This isn't a typical automotive type radio that some of you might be familiar with. What I'm familiar with anyway, in your typical radio, automotive type style radio, you can generally just remove them from they're designed and made to be removed by pulling them right straight out of the dash. This particular radio, when I took the trim piece down around the radio, and if you have a 2638 or Mahindra, they're probably about all the same as far as the radios, took the trim piece down, and the headliner for the tractor inside the interior was actually blocking any access to pull the radio out. I wasn't quite sure exactly how it was to be removed. Couldn't really find anything on the internet. Talked to my local dealer and didn't really walk away with any information other than look like I needed to pull the headliner down in order to remove the radio. So that's in fact what I did. I ended up pulling the headliner down. I'm just going to show you real quick what I ended up doing here and where I'm at in the process. I did get the radio removed. I've done a couple quick little tests to it and verified that in fact it's exactly how it was in the tractor. I can make it turn on, go to the radio stations, and I can see the little level player showing that it's playing and everything, but just nothing coming out of the speaker. So anyway, let me just show you real quick how I got the radio pulled out, and then we will go about, I'll show you where I'm at with testing it, show you the space that it is installed, and why it wasn't able to come out like a typical car radio or an automotive type style radio. Okay, so you can see I already have the headliner pulled down. Now, let me show you from inside here. Basically, there's nothing else that needs to be removed. I did remove the trim for the heater AC control. I'm not sure that really even needed to come off. That could have stayed on there. Same with the trim on the radio right here. That, I think, could have stayed right on. It just snaps into the headliner right up here. So, but at any rate, I popped those off because I wasn't quite sure how it came off. And I wasn't quite sure how much more I was going to need to remove. Turns out all I had to do is remove the screws that actually hold the headliner up. They go all the way around. Now this headliner probably weighs about 15-20 pounds, so it is kind of heavy. Right now it's currently up there. I did have to also remove this corner trim piece right here. You can see I have one installed. I haven't removed that one, but I did remove this one, and that allowed me to get this corner trim down, or get this corner down from the headliner once I remove the trim, which is right here. That's the corner trim. There's 3 screws that hold that on. So those came out fairly easy, and once that came out, I was able to just maneuver this down enough. I didn't have to remove it completely from the tractor, and that gave me enough working room to get up here where the radio sits. Now, let me take you up here and show you what I'm looking at here if I can. Like I said before, this isn't a typical automotive style, and I apologize here. I've got a small space to work in here, but I'm going to try and take you up around back here and show you what it looks like. So that right here, what you're looking at, I don't believe I can get my hand up there, but this is where the radio mounts, right in here. That's a steel plate, and actually, now that I look at it, I see the slots right here. That's where the trim piece actually snapped into. Okay, so I was just showing you from this side, that's where the radio mounts, to here. I can show you, if I pull it up, you can see it almost lines up. I'm not quite in the cab, so I can't pull it all the way up, but if you look at it, you can see I'm kind of holding it in place. Okay, so from the back side, you can see there's this plate right here. This wire's in the way a little bit here, but this is actually what the radio mounts to. There's a couple of brackets right on the side. You can see one right here, and there's one on the other side, and that's what actually the radio bolts to right here on each side of the radio. And this is the front right here where you reach the controls. And so that's the mounting plate. That's a rugged, really solid. I'm hitting it right there. It's welded. It's not going anywhere. It can bounce around. It's not going to go anywhere. This thing's on there pretty solid. Okay, so basically all I did is I unplugged the antenna. There was one plug on the back of the radio, which I'll show you in a minute. And I removed 2 screws on each side of this bracket, and the radio pulled right out. Pretty easy. While I'm up here, I'm also going to show you, I did pull one of the speakers out. I needed a speaker with me to bench test the radio. I wanted to make sure. It was pretty simple. 4 screws from inside. There's the guard, speaker guard that goes on. Just remove the 4 screws, unplug it right here, and your speaker will pop right out. That gives you a speaker to work with if you don't already have a spare backup. All right, I'm going to take you inside now. We're going to go look at the radio. Okay, so here is my Kenwood, and as I said before, this is a Kenwood KM, and you can see it right here, BT304. I believe this radio is actually, there's also a 204 and a 304, but several models. Probably pretty much the same. So now initially when I had the problem with the stereo, I've tried a number of different things. This faceplate pulls off, push the little corner, pops off, and this is basically the faceplate, hooks on over here, and you can see there's a little arrow, a little button, and releases the faceplate, and it plugs in right here. Okay, so to go on, it would go like this, and then push it on, and reverse to remove. Now, there is a button in here for reset right here. That's a factory reset button. On this particular, you can see it a little bit right there. And that's the factory reset for the BT304 and I believe the 204. I did do a factory reset. I also did a firmware update. The firmware update requires me to download a file from the Kenwood website, and I downloaded that file. I first verified that my radio hadn't been updated with the latest firmware, which the manual did tell me how to do. And if anybody has any questions on that, leave them a comment down below. I'll see if I can help you with that. But basically, I just followed the instructions on doing a factory reset, and it was pretty straightforward. Hit the button, put the faceplate back on, and also did a factory reset through the software on the radio too, to reset the faceplate, the complete radio basically, back to factory. And that did not solve my issue. And what I've done now is I've hooked myself up a temporary battery source, power source, 12 volt. And here's the speaker that I'm using just for a test run here. And what I've done is, it's pretty simple to verify what's what on here. There's basically, let me just pull this out a little bit here and I'll show you how this unplugs on the back here. Okay, so here is the back of the radio. Here's your main connector. This is the power and speaker connector wires. There's also a 10 amp fuse right here, but you have to remove this. You just push on this little tab and this will come right out. And I'm trying to do this one-handed, so that's why it looks more complicated than it is. It's not really. It comes right out just like that. There's your plug. And there is, as I mentioned, a 10 amp fuse right here that I've already verified. You just pull this out and you can see that it's actually working. Plus the radio would not even turn on. There'd be no power. It wouldn't power on if this is your main fuse. So at any rate, as I said, I basically just hooked this up temporarily now to just verify, bench test basically, that this is not working. And what I did here is you'll have a black wire and a red wire, red being positive, black being negative to your battery power source. And you'll also have a yellow wire here. This is basically like a constant power for your memory clock and whatnot. So I also hooked that one up to positive, the yellow, and the red, the battery positive. There's your two wires. And then I hooked up the battery black negative right here. And I also connected a ground to the chassis just to make sure that it was grounded. And I ran those two right here to the negative side of the battery. And once I did that, I could see the radio power up like it typically would. And there it is in standby mode, so it's pretty much ready to go. Okay, so now that I have the radio powered up and I can see that everything would normally be working other than the fact that there's no sound coming out of it. So for example, there's the radio. However, I don't have an antenna hooked up currently, so probably not going to, the radio I don't believe is going to work without it. So what I'm going to do is I'll Bluetooth into it from my phone, and I've already connected my phone to it through the Bluetooth. So I'm just going to go to my Bluetooth setting. Okay, and now I've hooked into it with my phone, and I have tried playing music over my phone into the radio to verify, and it's not working, obviously. So at any rate, that's where I am now in terms of testing this radio out at this point. Sure, I can find something that'll work in here. That'll be fine. But kind of disappointed. This one was a nice radio, worked well, but unfortunately, it's. I will keep you posted, and we'll let you know what the problem is and how we fix it. Thanks for joining me. Have a good day.